Hi, this is Edward Troxel. In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to access embedded markers in events. So if a marker is actually in an event and not just on the timeline, it makes them more difficult to see visually on the timeline. It makes them more difficult to access what the actual marker is. And there's no real way of actually looking at those markers. For example, if you go into Edit Details, you can see the markers on the timeline, but you can't see markers in events. And so somebody was wanting to be able to get a list of markers on any selected events, and by doing that we can list all those markers out. And then initially I just have it where if you click on one of those markers, it will move the cursor to that marker location. I chose to make this a custom command. Please go and look at the custom command series to get the basics of creating the custom command. I happen to put this one under Tools, and that's not the normal location that I would put them. Normally I would put them under View, but I decided to put this one under Tools. We'll look at some of the custom command settings, but we're going to concentrate on the actual display of the information and what happens when you click on one to move it to that location. We will of course upload this one since it's a custom command, and so you'll be able to download it and give it a try for yourself. So let's see how we do this. So we start by having a list view on the tab, and for this list view I've created 4 columns. If we go to the edit columns, you'll see that we have the M text, which is the titled marker, and that is where we're going to put the marker title, the actual text of the marker. Then we have our event time code and our timeline time code, which unless the event starts at the very beginning of the timeline, they will be different. And then we're going to list what event did this one come from. That way, if we need to locate just the event by its name, we can see the title of that event. Then I put me a refresh button on here so that when we select an event on the timeline, we can click refresh, and then it will update the list of markers that we have inside here. For the custom command itself, if we look at the CC test, you'll see that we created our dockable control, and then we have our base, which I called CC event markers, and then the display of this is going to, the name of the custom command is going to be event markers. If we scroll on down, you can see all of the standard stuff that we have in the default that we created in those previous tutorials. And then the custom command name is going to be event markers. The menu name is event space markers. And then we just copied all of this information down so that everything matches. Then in the main form, here we had our adding of the tabs. We added our tab control 1 and our tab control 2. I took the tab control 2 out so that we just have the single tab listed on this form. And so this is only going to have the one tab. Next, let's go to the tab itself, the code behind this tab, and see what happens. The main tab, it's just displaying the form. Once the form is displayed, then we have to do something with the form, and that's where the rest of the code comes in. The first part of the code is our button refresh, and this is our button refresh code here. So we're going to go through every track, my track in myvegas.project.tracks, and then we're going to go through every event on that track. So for each track event in mytrack.events, if the event is selected, then we want to look at this one. It's only going to look at selected events. If the event.activeTake.media.markers.count is greater than 0, then we know that it does have media markers, markers that are embedded inside that event. Then, so I could tell whether or not it was a video event or an audio event, I created me a header variable and put a V in it. And then if the event is audio, then I changed it to an A in parentheses. And then we go through each marker, my marker, in event.activetake.media.markers. And the first thing I'm going to do is get a time code of the timeline position, and that is my marker dot position plus the event start. So this is the actual timeline position, not the position inside the event. My marker dot position is the marker inside the event. So since the first piece of information I want is the marker's label, I'm going to create a new list view item called LView. It's a new list view item, and I'm going to pull in my marker dot label. And then I want to add the other pieces of information, so I'm going to do a lview.subitems.add, and that's my marker.position.toString, and then my lview.subitems.add, my timeline position.toString, and then finally I'm going to add the header, which is video or audio, and then the file name behind that event. So this will tell you the actual file that contains all of these extra markers. And then I'm going to do a listview1.items.add and lview. So we've now added that new list view item into the list view control on that form. Now when we click on that form, we want it to jump to that cursor location. So here we've created our selected index change. So when we click on it, the selected index is going to change. So the first thing we need to look at is if listview1.selectedItems.count is greater than 0. What happens when you click on an item, first of all, it goes to 0, and then it will go to be the number of items that you've clicked. Ideally, we're just clicking on one because we're just looking at the first one. All we want to do is make sure that we have one selected, because if we don't have one selected, doing the rest of this code will cause an error. So now I'm putting me a using undo block in here. If we change Vegas, then we have to use an undo block. Technically, we're not changing Vegas here, so this may work without using the undo block. But I like to go ahead and put these in there just in case. We put my Vegas.project and what we are doing. Set the cursor location to marker. So then we get the lview list view item from listview1.selectedItems, and we look at the first selected item, which is number 0. Next we go to our time code, timeline position, equals the timecode.from string, and we're going to look at subitems number 2.text, which is our timeline position. Next, we're going to go to myvegas.transport.cursor position, and we're going to set it to that timeline position. So really fairly simple code to fill in the list, and fairly simple code to actually, when you click on it, it selects an item and moves the cursor to that location. And then we have to compile this because it is a custom command. And it has now compiled. In my documents, I have a Vegas application extensions folder. And so now I'm going to take this compiled version, which I'm getting from the CC event markers, CC test, bin release. We just take this DLL file and copy it over. I happen to already have one there. And so we replace the file in the destination. And now Vegas has to be closed when this happens. So now we can open Vegas back. Now I'm going to load the project. Now this one has embedded markers on it, and this one has embedded markers on it. So I'm going to select both of those. And here's our event markers custom command. So now when I hit refresh, it loads all of the information. These all came from the file named 3-37 Army of the Tennessee, and these all came from 3-52 53rd Ohio Infantry. And these are the various marker names that we used as those embedded markers. So now if I click on this one right here, notice the cursor jumps to the beginning of that file. If I click on here, now the cursor jumps to where that marker location is set. And so as I click around, you can see that the cursor is moving to the marker location as it is. Wherever that marker is located is where that cursor is jumping to. So as you can see, we can quickly have it locate any all of the markers on selected events, and these are the embedded markers, and then we can list all of those markers, and then as we click around on those markers, it will move the cursor to the location where it's embedded in that event. So I hope you like this tutorial. We'll see about expanding on this custom command a little bit in a future tutorial. And so like, subscribe, and let me know what kind of tutorials you'd like to see in the future.